Hello and welcome to another Super Hondas video. Today I'm again with my third generation Prelude, and I'm going to be talking to you about whether I think it's a car that could be used in the modern world as a daily driver. Now you could say that I'm highly qualified to judge whether this car could be driven in the modern world, considering that I own one for 4 years in the 1990s, and of course I own one today. So I'm going to look at making comparisons to driving the car back then and how modern traffic, etc., affects the way the car can be driven on the road today. What I would say is that I have got some younger friends who've got third gen Preludes that do daily drive it because they haven't got the benefit of having more than one vehicle that I'm lucky enough to have these days. And why would they go for this? Well, for a start off, we only have to look at modern vehicles over the last 10 years, and majority are SUVs. You can't get anything like this sort of style. You haven't got that connection with the road. Everything's run by computer. You've got that appeal that would draw somebody who sees one of these and think, you know what, I'd like that for myself. And I can fully understand that, because back in the time that I owned the first one, the reason I got the car, it was something different. So you can imagine for a younger person now who sees one of these at a show and they're ready to get their first car, they're going to want something different. And why not this? Something with pop-up lights, a bit of style, something that draws attention, but has still got enough power to drive on a modern road. And certainly worth consideration. And what we're going to do is go through the whys, wherefores and pitfalls and pluses of owning and running as a daily driver the Honda third generation Prelude. Although the Prelude has central locking, modern vehicles have keyless entry, remote control, whereas this one literally has two keys. An extra one for the driver's door because the lock has been replaced at some stage, and then the other key will do the rest. And once inside, we'll have a look at some of the modern features that the vehicle has got that you'd expect in a current vehicle. Electric windows, both sides. It's only got little quarter lights in the back, so you wouldn't expect more than that for the rear windows anyway. Power steering. We have sunroof, which you don't get in a lot of modern vehicles. Quite often it's a panoramic roof, but there are some that you get a sliding sunroof these days, but not so much a feature on modern vehicles. One thing you do get on my model, something that didn't feature on many cars back at the time that it was manufactured, is electric mirrors, which is nice to have. Again, a sort of what can be considered to be a modern feature. Climbing inside the vehicle, we're going to have a look at some of the other things here. Stereo. Yep, I've replaced this. This is a Blaupunkt Bremen. It's 4 times 50 watts. The original stereo that came in the car had a tape deck in it and didn't have Bluetooth and any other outputs. This has got some extra outputs here, SD card slot if you want to use it. I tend to use it just on the Bluetooth, and it plays the music very well. The original speakers, 5¼ inch on the front, and then in the rears, only 4 inch in the shelves. Power wasn't good, so again, something that I've upgraded. Some quality speakers in the fronts and also in the rears that give us better power, which support the stereo. Again, just things you can upgrade to bring it up to date to enjoy it as a daily driver. When we look at the safety side of things, you have to consider that the vision that you get from this car is really good. You can see those front corners there. It's a very, very wide screen. You've got thin pillars all round. Very, very good visibility. Now, whilst that means that we haven't got quite such a tough roof on the car, it does mean that it provides safety for good vision whilst you're driving it. You don't have side airbags or curtain airbags here. You don't have an airbag in the steering wheel, which means that you haven't got a bulky centre to it. In the doors, there's no side impact beams, so if you do get side swiped, there's nothing more or nothing extra there to help the structure of the car. In the rear, it's a 2+2 and we've only got lap belts here. Now, I believe in the US, certainly in later vehicles, they had a 3-point belt, but I only remember a lap belt here in the UK. And of course, if you've got children, now these seats are pretty much only good for small children, but if you've got one that's in a little chair, in a pram, then you're not going to be able to put a child seat in there and take them anywhere. So that's something to consider. And of course, one of the reasons why I've got a smartphone holder here is because there isn't a screen for sat nav and all those other things that come with it. So you will have to use your smartphone for those things. No massive thing, but one thing that some people might find a bit of a bugbear is the fact that there are no cup holders. There's not even a centre storage box here. I know it was an option. I'm not sure whether I've actually seen one in the UK. I've seen people make them up out of other Honda vehicles, but it was either an option in the UK or just a US only feature. And of course that can cause some problems, although it does have a very small glove box over there and door pockets that you can get a few bits in, but certainly not cups. What we do have on the third generation Prelude is good storage in the boot area, and that's extended by the possibility of bringing the back seat down so you can put long items through. It's literally just released from the top here, and then you pull this and it opens it up into the boot area. So that's something that's really good that you wouldn't expect in a vehicle of this age. So if we now have a look at the boot area, there is a lever here just by the driver's seat to open it up. That flips the boot up, and if we open it up here, you can see that it is a cavernous boot. You can get quite a lot in there when you consider the size of the vehicle, the depth. The only thing is I would say is that you need to lift heavy items over that lip, and that's a problem. But of course, on a lot of SUVs, you've got to lift these days quite a height to get things in there, and a lot of modern SUVs, particularly the very small ones, don't have a boot area like this. One of the trips I've done in this vehicle in recent times was a visit to Honda Euromeet in France, and it's basically a camping only venue, so I had to get a tent, camping table, chairs, everything, sleeping bag, the whole works. Easily went in here without even putting the seat down. And yeah, okay, luckily I was going by myself, so I even got a cool box in the front passenger seat. But definitely a usable space. You look at general maintenance of these vehicles, it's quite simple under the bonnet. These days on modern vehicles, you met with a load of plastic coverings because really they want you to leave it to the dealership to do everything. Here you've got usual air filter, oil filter is quite accessible with the car up in the air. You can see most things, and there's actually room to get your hands around things to get in there. Although you haven't got fully electronic ignition, you've still got a distributor and rotor arm in there. It is like a semi-electronic system, so there's no points on like you get on the older 70s vehicles. And of course, on this particular model, you've got programmable fuel injection, which is an absolute boon. There's no sort of pulling out the choke on a cold morning to start it. It just all works by itself. And in reality, actual maintenance and service, everything is accessible. You can get your hands everywhere, and you shouldn't really be then frightened at doing a lot of these things yourself, providing you can get the parts for it. Coming on to the parts thing, and that I would say is probably one of the biggest bugbears on running a vehicle this old, and particularly a Honda this old. Unfortunately, Honda have not been the best at supporting their older vehicles. They had a cut-off point of about 20 years, and then they didn't really want to know much. You could get some parts, and people had parts stored, etc. But it is more and more difficult to get parts for these vehicles. You're probably going to have better sources in the US, and in fact I've bought a lot of parts in the US. The air filters have come over from Rock Auto in the States, oil filters, etc. And even the fuel filter came from Rock Auto as well. But in the UK, parts are sparse, and a lot of the time you're looking at second-hand parts, but of course you don't want to be doing that with service parts. Yeah, you can get a battery for it, but I even had a issue with some brakes where the pads were breaking up, and so I went to a local retailer and bought a new set of pads, and when I got them back, they literally didn't fit. They were a completely different pattern. I didn't take the previous ones with me to check, and they just were absolutely adamant that they'd given me the correct brake pads, but they definitely weren't. So more recently, what I've put on here are some quality Japanese discs, and also some really top quality pads, and that really does help to provide good braking capability in the modern traffic. But of course, we're just talking service parts here. If you want to actually replace panels, replace plastic trim, or things like that, then there's some serious problems because they're simply not made anymore. Nobody's reproducing these panels. Not in the UK. I believe you could get them in the US at one stage, but in the UK, the volumes would be so low that it wouldn't be financially viable for somebody to actually produce panels for this car. So then you have to end up getting specialist repairers to reproduce parts of the car to combat rust over the years, etc. Or you're having to get a parts car to get bits together. I'm lucky enough that I got an aerial mast from a friend who an OEM aerial mast. Otherwise I wouldn't have had an original aerial, and a lot of people delete those. When it comes down to the exhaust system, I inherited the car with a part stainless steel exhaust, and what I've endeavoured to do to give it the same sort of look as the original Honda exhaust, albeit the problem being is that you cannot get the parts for these. If you wanted to keep the original mild steel version, you can't get them in the UK. Not sure whether you can get them elsewhere, but certainly in the UK you can't get them, or you can't get all the parts. So you end up having to turn into a stainless steel system, which is far more expensive and also a little bit noisier. And of course then you end up putting sound deadening in and whatnot to just combat the extra noise you get from the exhaust, unless you're happy with a lot of noise intruding into the car. That may be a consideration. This car, sometimes at great expense, I've managed to trawl the world for new old stock parts, and have been able to put the car back together. But of course, if you had even a minor accident in one of these cars, that's going to be a problem. In fact, I had a friend of mine, Barry, who had a twin carb version of one of these, and when he bought the car, it was actually a track car, and he spent a lot of time, effort, ended up repainting the car, putting it back together, get a new set of wheels on it, etc. But in the end, he was realising he was having so many problems trying to source parts for the car that he was worried that going forward he wouldn't be able to do what he wanted to do to it. And so he decided to have a change of heart, and he's now got a Mazda MX-5. So what else is missing on this vehicle that you would have on a modern vehicle? Well, parking sensors. Front and rear on a modern vehicle, you'd have obviously your screen, a camera to help reversing in. Funny enough, my stepdaughter had a car that she had after 6 months. The rear parking sensors went on it, and she was moaning about getting them fixed. And in the end, she just got used to parking without them and actually learned the dimensions of a vehicle and put it in a spot without the assistance of a camera and parking sensors. What else is there? Well, driver aids, forward collision monitoring, lane keep assist, something I switch off in my vehicle here, and I know it was available on later model, the facelift model. Cruise control, that's something we use every day. So there are a whole host of things, a lot of them relating to safety, that aren't on this vehicle, but you have to say, would you really miss some of them? And I would say some of them I probably wouldn't. In fact, I enjoy driving the vehicle so much that it doesn't seem to matter to me too much. The seats, I think they were originally made by, or they were made by Recaro. They're comfortable enough. Yeah, probably haven't got the padding of a seat from the modern era, but still comfortable enough to go on a long journey. Like I said, I've been on a number of journeys, and that one I went to France was about a 600-mile round trip. No problems at all, comfortable enough. So we've talked about owning the vehicle, including safety and servicing, availability of parts, etc. But what's it like to drive on a daily basis? Now, there's a number of things here. The shocks I've got on my car are coilovers. The car came with coilovers. I only had 2 of the original suspension units, and to be fair, you know, once they've gone past a certain point, again, it's impossible to get a hold of these parts in the UK, so you can't put the original units back on the car. So with coilovers, your level of comfort is not quite as good. Then we've got consideration. I talked about the brakes earlier on. Now, the brakes in this car at the time of manufacture were absolutely adequate, and I never remember having any problems at all. But modern vehicles have much sharper brakes that stop in much shorter distances. So the problem you find is that with just a normal set of pads and discs, that you'll end up in a queue of traffic and suddenly everything stops, and they stop very, very quickly. And you're left wanting from your brakes. Suddenly you feel as though you're going to career into the back of the vehicle in front. Now, that hasn't happened to me yet, and then obviously you can say that's down to braking distances and you could compensate for that. But the problem is that if you've been driving another type of modern vehicle, that is something you've got to consider, you've got to get used to, or do what I did. And I got some upgraded discs from Japan, and also upgraded pads, and they now apparently have probably about 20% plus better efficiency than standard brakes. And let me tell you, they stop you. So if you're going to daily drive this car, then I would say certainly get some better brakes. Not available in the UK, as far as I know, but you know, there are people that you can speak to, and you can get hold of these things and get them shipped over. The other thing I would say from a comfort point of view is the air conditioning, or lack of it in this car. Now, I realise that later vehicles and the special edition of this car had air conditioning, but this hasn't, and it's like a little hot box. You know, on a day like today, and I've got the window shut because I'm filming and don't want all the air noise, the buffeting, etc. It is getting, over a long journey, it's getting a little bit warm, and I've found that when I've gone on long distances, yeah, I can put the windows down, I can open the sunroof, but it's not ideal. We're used to having air conditioning running when it gets hot, you literally just press a button and on it goes. Now, that's something that you get on the later cars, so it won't be a factor. Also, the vents, the central vents work very well, but the vents on the doors don't work so well. There's very minimal airflow coming through those. So I'm not sure what whether they improved them on the 4th gen and the 5th gen, but certainly on the 3rd gen, the airflow that you get from there, and there is a little one under the steering wheel that vents in between your legs, which marginally helps, but in reality, the airflow and the cooling, let's say, is not good. You know, when it's cold, yeah, it's okay. You know, it heats up well enough, and I would say it's probably warm enough to run in the winter, so no problems there. I don't recall back when I had my original Prelude having any sort of issues thinking that it was too cold. And of course, back at that time, you know, I wasn't sort of used to having a car with air conditioning, so you do get used to it. You get used to having a car without air conditioning. It's not an absolute major thing, but if you're used to running a vehicle with air conditioning, it's something that you definitely will miss. So what else? Handling of these cars, well, as you can imagine, with the 4-wheel steering, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's very easy to place the car on the road anyway, because you've good vision. I would say the steering's got a little bit of feedback, there's a little bit of texture to it, and very easy to drive in that regard. And the car goes round bends through islands very, very quickly. And because you've got very good vision all round as well, even though you're sitting lower down, and that's something you'll notice, you're sitting lower down than the average vehicle in, you know, modern traffic, particularly when there's, you know, pretty much everything on the road these days is an SUV, and sitting much higher, and of course you've got lorries, etc. around you, and initially you think you feel really quite small. But let me tell you, these cars, particularly with the 4-wheel steering, are very, very maneuverable, and you can whip through the traffic. You can literally flip through the lanes, through the gaps. You can judge once you get to know the vehicle, you can judge the parameters of it, and so you can go through those gaps without any danger, and you can make very good progress in traffic. So that, I would say, is one of the big things that will help you get through modern traffic. Now, of course, on a long run, modern vehicle, you're quite isolated from the road. And of course, you don't get the noise that you get. And I've already referred earlier on about the exhaust. You do get some exhaust coming through. I've isolated it a lot. I've put extra sound deadening around the sort of boot trunk area to stop it coming through, and that's helped a lot. And I've also even put sound deadening, extra sound deadening under the floor pan as well, and that's helped isolate things. But you do get a little bit more engine noise coming through. You do get a bit more wind noise, and if that troubles you, then that's a consideration as well. For me though, just the joy of driving these cars, and they just make me, you know, it makes me smile. And even though I don't daily drive mine, I have said before that I wouldn't find it a major issue, I guess, unless I was traveling great distances every day. And that's the thing. If you're only commuting to work and such like, then you don't have to really consider long-term comfort, and so it's probably going to work out for you. But to sum up, I would say, yeah, you can daily drive this car, but you have to consider a number of things, and I think you have to make some upgrades to bring it up to a standard for modern traffic, and you have to consider getting plenty of service items in stock. I do with my vehicles anyway. I've got a stock of them ready to go, so if there's any shortage or they don't become available in your country, then at least you've got them already. Stockpile those, and of course if something does happen, something does break that can't be bought somewhere, you know, it's not a service item, then you really ought to consider maybe gathering some extra parts together or having a parts car. Don't get me wrong, there's good support out there. There is good support. I've managed to get support, and I've got bits from all over the world. But if you've got something that's going to keep you off the road for a period of time whilst you're waiting for bits to come, you know, in a couple of weeks, then that's going to stop you being able to daily drive it. And of course, that could be the thing, just like my friend Barry, that was the thing that really stopped him. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you like, please press the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we'll see you in the next one.